Hey, good morning, everybody. I am here in studio. This is Intellectual Medicine. Shannon is remote. Good morning, Shannon. Out there in San Diego. You're missing a beautiful snowfall. We will be ready to rock here. All sorts of cool stuff today. We're going to have a call-in guest talking about vitamin C and cancer, especially in the pediatric population. And yes, I'll give you my take on the state of the state, the State of the Union. We're in boom times, people. The economy is growing like crazy. People are making money in states. Coffers are full everywhere except for in Rhode Island. We're going to be talking about the politics of distraction. Stay with me. It's going to connect to your health, I promise. All right. We're going to talk about, if time permits, I'll give you my impressions regarding the health implications. The health implications of decriminalizing prostitution. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? What would the effect be on individuals' health, mental well-being, and the fabric of society? I think these are worth reflecting on. All right, let me get myself organized here, team. A big okay. Economy, and states and obesity. We'll put this over here. All right.
With WPRO's exclusive AccuWeather, I'm meteorologist Brian Thompson. Right now it's 32 degrees at the weather station. I'm Douglas Henry.
We're ready to go. Hi, Shannon. I miss you. You need to come back. You cannot stay in San Diego. I don't care how nice it is out there.
The following program has been paid for by Dr. Stephenpetteruti. It is for entertainment and basic informational purposes only. Okay, here we go. It does not reflect the views of Cumulus Media, WPRO, its management, or its staff. News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM, WPRO presents Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Dr. Petteruti, as he guides people towards living the 120 lifespan while retaining youth. He'll apply logic, reason, and scientific evidence to address conditions that drain people of their joy and vitality while protecting people from the harmful aspects of conventional medicine. Now, here's Dr. Steve Petteruti.
Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Petteruti. You're listening to Intellectual Medicine and WPRO, your station for intellectual dialogue. Well, this morning, we have a very special guest we'll be calling in a bit later in the show. We're going to be hearing from Liz, who'll be discussing her experience with her son's cancer diagnosis and treatment, and their subsequent decision to make intravenous vitamin C a part of their treatment plan. And we're going to be preceding that with some of the background information. You know, folks, this is one of the reasons why intellectual medicine exists. In the world of medicine and science, the mainstream has divined ways of therapy that have valid evidence in many cases, and in other cases are just their best, most sincere approach to handle a problem. Left on the side of the road are a host of human conditions, and you people know what I'm talking about, that have avenues of treatment that have value, effect, and can change lives, but are not part of the mainstream of medicine. So intellectual medicine exists to address these areas, to deliver that care to you right now. So what are the criteria? How do we decide what should or should not be applied? Well, we'll get to that. But first, folks, enjoy this day. It is gorgeous out there. Tyler, this is why we're in New England. San Diego is stuck in San Diego with nothing but sunshine. You know what they don't have in San Diego? That's right. They don't have snowmen. They don't have snowballs. They can't do donuts in the parking lot, right? Well, I can't say. I may or may not have. It's not to be disclosed. Well, listen, I understand that doing donuts in a parking lot is probably technically illegal, and I would never partake of something of that nature. Not knowingly, not willfully. It's possible I could have turned my wheels in an attempt to change direction, thereby leading to inadvertent fishtailing. No worry, no worry. So it's gorgeous out there, people. Go out on the road, give yourself an extra 10% of your travel time They're doing a nice job keeping the roads. You know, they call this thing a snowstorm. We have Operation Snowball. It's not a storm, people. A couple of snowflakes. Go out and live your life. This is what you're in New England for. In a few months, you'll be lamenting the heat. But listen, we need to talk about vitamin C, about all complementary care pathways. So what is degrading our quality of life? One of those is deficient energy, vitality, mental clarity. We're talking about aging itself. There's a field of medicine called geriatrics, a field of medicine that we would like to see eliminated. Why? Because it presupposes that we are going to become infirm. At intellectual medicine, we look at aging not as an inevitable consequence of life. Chronologic aging certainly is, but physiologic, the aging of the body, can be modified with proper support. Herein lies the realm of advanced wellness, intellectual medicine definition. It's not the absence of disease. If you don't have diabetes, if you don't have high blood pressure, if you don't have cancer, you're considered healthy, right? The absence of disease. Maybe not. Maybe you're starting to suffer from sarcopenia. That's muscle loss, slowing down of the brain. Ever heard of the term a senior moment? What is that? It's cognitive decline. And to cavalierly brush it off as a quaint phenomenon of aging is to neglect an opportunity to intervene. Now, we have to talk about cancer. The oncologist and the mainstream of medicine have done some phenomenally positive things when it comes to treating cancer in the acute phase. And now we're going to highlight a little bit about pediatric cancer, but it can be extended to other forms. Previously, 1960s, the survival rate of pediatric cancer was less than 5% after 5 years. Currently, the survival rate is 83%. But here's the caveat, folks. 5 years isn't good enough. If you're 12 and you're treated for cancer, 17 doesn't define success. And here's another problem. It's called delayed metastases, delayed relapse. You get past 5 years. Now, look, we need a metric. We have to have something to measure. So the 5-year metric is reasonable. It helps clinicians to determine, are these therapies effective or not? In the 1950s, the theory was proposed that intravenous high-dose vitamin C could have toxic effects toward cancer and might be an effective adjunct. 1950s. In the 1970s, Dr. Cameron and his colleagues implemented intravenous vitamin C therapy to a cluster of patients with cancer and reported positive effect. At that time, it was not a controlled study, so criticisms were rendered and the treatment never became mainstream. In the 1990s, the Mayo Clinic did a great disservice to vitamin C by doing a horrible study where they, instead of giving intravenous, they gave oral vitamin C and concluded it didn't work. That led to the present misperception on the part of many in mainstream medicine that intravenous vitamin C has no possibility of working. Well, let's fast forward. Cancer study. This was recently published, 2018. The authors from the National Institute of Health and Johns Hopkins Cancer Centers. Phase 1 and 2 trials. Phase 1 trials for safety. Phase 2 trials when they start to try to establish efficacy. I'm going to read their conclusion, folks. Now, pull up a chair. What I'm about to read to you became the basis of a complaint against intellectual medicine for misrepresenting scientific data. I respect my colleagues. However, some of them are afflicted with a reflexive negativity when it comes to complementary care. And rather than taking the time and energy to investigate latest research, they prefer instant criticism. Well, this is a pathway when new information is presented, the first reaction is opposition. But listen to the quote. I'm going to quote right from the article from the authors, National Institute of Health, Johns Hopkins. Quote, vitamin C has been shown to be safe in nearly all patient populations, alone and in combination with chemotherapy. So criteria number 1, is it safe? Answer, absolutely. We don't do anything in intellectual medicine unless we believe, based upon observation and research, it has a high degree of safety. Number 2, does it have a possibility of having benefit? Again, from the same authors, a study looking at ovarian cancer. Patients receiving vitamin C along with their conventional care, 8.75 months of increased progression-free survival. That's 9 months of healthy living with no cancer. That matters. We need to talk about quality of life, some of its mechanisms, and we need to hear firsthand on how people go about making this decision. So when we come back after the break, we'll be welcoming Liz, who'll be discussing her decision and its role in pediatric cancer especially, that we would love to see more widespread. And don't forget, we're going to be talking about guns and prostitution. So some fun stuff at the back end, Tyler. Stay tuned. I will give you my take on both. I'm Dr. Petteruti. This is Intellectual Medicine. See you in a few minutes.
This is New England.
Guns, prostitution, and snow. This is a medical show, I thought.
Yeah, it is. So Tyler's teasing me. It is a medical show. And I got to tell you, Tyler, guns and prostitution are central to medicine. And we're going to talk about, or health, we'll talk about why.
Definitely prostitution.
$5.99.
You know, we've talked about it before. Sexual health is a form of health. Whether or not sex workers have a positive role in providing sexual access to people that otherwise are limited in their ability to access that outlet is worthy of conversation. Whether or not that should be made illegal is another piece of that conversation. And absolutely nobody is supportive of human trafficking of any type, whether it's for cutting your lawn or sex services or picking fruit in Southern California. That's a separate issue. When you commingle not irrelevant, but issues that don't necessarily belong clubbed together, it can muddy the water. We need to talk about distraction politics. Now in Rhode Island, it's no shock that a bill has been introduced for gun control. Why? Distraction politics. We're going to pass a massive tax increase, and that's what's happening. Massive tax increases. But don't mind that. We're there for gun control. And there's a cohort of the population that will be so energized by gun control that they're going to ignore the tax increase. Say again?
Robert Kraft coming on then, right?
We could talk about Robert. You know, I mean, the man has a right to his libido. This is just, we need to reflect on the value of criminalizing sex work.
He's going for 120. Is he supposed to spend 43 years without it?
Some significant and rational thought.
Older patients differently, and our integrated program is designed to meet your complex needs.
So we've got Liz on the line.
Yes, we do. So it should be on that computer.
Comprehensive care
Yep.
program for older adults at kentri.org site.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Call 401-737-6000, extension 34893. Kent Hospital is a member of Care New England.
Now back to Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
Hey gang, I'm back. It's Dr. Steve Petteruti from Intellectual Medicine. We're here in studio on a beautiful snowy day. Shannon is in San Diego. She's joining us via Facebook Live. So people, you can type in you can go to Facebook Live and you can type in questions and comments and Shannon can respond to them. Unfortunately, you don't hear her beautiful voice, but she is there. She's awake. She's on the, how dedicated to task is that, Tyler, right? It's got to be about 2 o'clock in the morning there. I wasn't. It's beautiful there, beautiful. We get a, but look, I don't want her to stay there. She may fall in love with the weather, say, I'm sorry. That's right. Well, she's there at an intravenous vitamin conference. Now, folks, intravenous vitamin therapies and intravenous supplements are now available nationwide. Intellectual Medicine and the IM Drip Bar is pioneering and advancing its use in Rhode Island. There's a center in East Providence being directed by my good friend, Dr. Michael Souza. and we're looking to expand this. I want to be the Johnny Appleseed of intravenous therapy for good reason. And part of that reason is embodied by Liz, her family, and the decisions she made. Welcome, Liz. Good morning. It's so great to talk to you again. Yeah, I know you've been on the show before, Liz, and our relationship, God, it's hard to believe now. It goes back 5 years. It's been a great run. So Liz, her son is recovered from Ewing sarcoma, an aggressive form of cancer, and I know that when the diagnosis was rendered, obviously came as a shock, life-changing moment. And the terror of that moment and the urgency of treatment was compelling. And fortunately, you got some great care by some superb physicians. And I want to highlight your intuition, Liz, because I remember you telling me that you came back from Boston and they thought they had gotten all the cancer, but you had a bad vibe. Talk about that for a moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to highlight a couple of elements of your process. One is the complexity of the diseases that we face and the ultimate uncertainty on the absolute best path. And the other, Liz, and you're very intellectual and I admire your research, is seeking out multiple opinions like you did, and then balancing them and making the decision that fits you, that has, patients have often said to me, doctor, something's just not right. There's a certain intuition that patients have about their family, their children, and themselves that can't always be fully quantified, but it's real and needs to be honored. So that was a great decision. The rib came out. How did you become aware of vitamin C as an option? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I want to pick up on that point for a moment, Liz, because that goes to the heart of what we're advocating for in large measure at intellectual medicine. And that is the necessary intervention of aggressive treatment. Like you say, the war is over. And then the next phase for most patients that have fought the war against cancer is go home and let's hope it doesn't come back. That's just, I can't imagine the psychological weight of that. So here's the fork in the road. And Liz, as you know, some of my mainstream colleagues have criticized our approach. I can understand their criticism because they're saying, look, you've got vulnerable patients. They would do anything if you're selling them poppy seeds and claiming benefit, they may be vulnerable to wasting time and money. But you had to do some research because you sought out vitamin C. And let's move to that phase of it. How did you make that decision regarding implementing vitamin C therapy? Hmm. Hmm. Right. So we're talking with Liz, whose son survived Ewing sarcoma, and about approximately 5 years ago, came to our center after Liz had heard about vitamin C from another cancer mom, and decided to research it. And what Liz has found, or what we know, is that based upon studies done in the lab, that vitamin C has a toxic effect on cancer cells. It appears by virtue of converting to hydrogen peroxide, which cancer cells cannot tolerate, but human cells can. So your native cells are not harmed. The cancer cells can be harmed. And it's been shown to have that effect on a wide array of cellular cancers. So here's Liz in that dilemma. And Liz, I'm going to be repeating some of what you say because our Facebook people can't hear you. Faced with the dilemma, go home, enjoy your son, the cancer's in remission, but there's a chance of recurrence. Now I'm going to share some statistics, and this is from a paper in 2017, late recurrence of Ewing sarcoma. And by late recurrence, they're looking even beyond 5 years. Now, unfortunately, Ewing sarcoma, very aggressive, a very high rate of relapse even within 5 years. But before I get to statistics, because, I like to say, Liz, there are only two stats that matter, right? You have percentages. Am I going to be alive? What's the percentage? Is 100 or 0. You're either alive or not. You either feel great or you don't. How's Thomas doing? I'm sorry, how's your son doing? It's exciting. Right. It's exciting. It's exciting. And, so these statistics, we're looking for ways to change them. Secondary prevention of cancer means, after the diagnosis, doing things to prevent it from coming back. Now, this is not isolated to pediatric cancer, but pediatric cancer is perhaps the most compelling because they have the longest lifespan in front of them. Therefore, when you have a late recurrence, even if it's 10 years out, that's relevant. So late recurrence with Ewing sarcoma, 15% for the primary cancer, 11%, now these are death rates, 11% from treatment effect. So you're over, 26%. 85% of Ewing cancer patient survivors had chronic conditions of muscle or cardiac origin. Now, thus far, and we're always living life in the moment. We all are, right? Life is a fatal entity. We live it in the moment. Your son, you, your family are living that moment in a robust fashion. But the need to be diligent and to be proactive, we feel, has strong merit. The IV vitamin C, no toxic effect. It has the possibility of affecting nascent cancer cells that are trying to form. Now, this theory I'm sharing with you, Liz, has come under some criticism, but I'm pleased to report that I've been invited to speak at an international conference of anti-aging medicine on this exact topic. There's a colossal need to try to put forth thought, ideas, and practices that can make cancer less likely to come back. In breast cancer, stage 1 breast cancer, 13% delayed relapse rate. Colon cancer, after cure, 7.8% delayed relapse rate. So we're talking about a pervasive problem, and that is, what do we do in the aftermath? And to date, we're down now. The first year, I think we were doing weekly infusions, and then we went to every other week, and now it's once a month. And so that's something that it's so great seeing you, your family, and what I love about it is the normalcy of the path, right? That your son does not perceive this. Correct me if I'm wrong. He doesn't perceive this as a negative moment that he has to grind through. Okay, we've got to jump to news. I just got a heads up, but can you stay with us for a little bit over the news? And I want to conclude on the other side. We're talking with Liz, whose son survives Ewing sarcoma. But up next, from the Revolution Softwash News Center, it's Doug Lizette. All right, so we're talking to Liz. Her son had Ewing sarcoma, diagnosed when he went to the doctor because he was having a cough. A chest x-ray revealed a tumor in the lung that was rather extensive. Subsequent surgery revealed that it metastasized from the lung to the lymph nodes and into the bone. That type of Ewing sarcoma has a severe and high rate of recurrence. Acute treatment included surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy. After treatment, there was still a significant high rate of potential relapse within 5 years. Liz did her own research, found intravenous vitamin C, found research regarding its potential merit, and sought out care at Intellectual Medicine and started a path of treatment. I have to admit, when I met Liz, I was impressed, and I still am impressed, with her intellect, balance, and thoughtfulness. But I was also a little nervous. Right, here comes this child with cancer, surviving cancer, and here I am doing intravenous vitamin C, thinking about the possibilities of, what ended up occurring to us, which is negative criticism by colleagues who don't understand what we're doing. Some have claimed that what we do can cause harm. We've been here for 5 years. We've done tens of thousands of infusions. There's been no major complications, not one. Not only with vitamin C supporting people fighting cancer, but with intravenous chelation therapy for people fighting heart disease. We'll talk more about this in a future show. The fact that chelation therapy is not on the lips of everybody with diabetes or heart disease is an indictment to a degree of mainstream medicine and the stifling of new information that they themselves don't conceive of. Innovation frequently met with resistance, and we have experienced that. So when we come back, we'll be talking more to Liz. It's been 5 years. Her son is thriving. He feels great. He looks great. His academic performance is excellent. He's involved in civic and social activities. His growth is normal. He's having no muscle pain, no cardiac complications. He's a normal kid. Question: how long is somebody who once had cancer at risk? We know, I quoted those stats just a moment ago. We believe it's a lifetime risk. There's something called stem cells that are part of the cancer story. These stem cells are like little cancer cell producing factories, and they frequently are resistant to chemotherapy and radiation. So you kill all the cancer, you kill all the tumors, the scans are normal, but left behind are these little cancer cell producing factories. And they're spitting out cells. There's something called a doubling time. How long does it take for one cell to become 2 cells, to become 4 cells? That's the doubling time. Well, exponential mathematics apply. If doubling time is, say, 30 days, and for cancers it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months. If it's 30 days, that means every 30 days you're going to double the population. The theory behind intravenous vitamin C used on a monthly basis is that we are intermittently killing those cancer cells that are trying to grow. We're killing them before you ever know you have them. We're attempting to kill them before they ever form a tumor. Cancer that forms a tumor has to divide upwards of 30 times before it can be seen. That can be an average of 7 years in some cases. So we need to be doing something when you feel great, when you can't see the cancer, in my opinion, based upon this type of evidence, to help diminish the rate of the relapse. Now, Shannon over in San Diego, she's had melanoma twice. And we know melanoma is a sneaky disease. It has a tendency to reproduce and metastasize without fair warning. It's hard to follow and screen. CAT scanning is a crude tool that only sees tumors that are large after they've been there for many years. Furthermore, CAT scanning is carcinogenic. It is ionizing radiation. One of the reasons pediatric cancer cases have such a high rate of complication later in life is because of the constant imaging. And that's one theory. So we do this IV vitamin C once a month, and we track outcomes and we see how it's going to go. 1950, the theory was proposed. 1970, Cameron started doing IV infusions. 2019, we're still fighting headwind when we try to implement this approach. Just not right. If you hang with us, we're going to be talking about gun control, and we're going to be talking about sex work and whether or not it should be legal or illegal. And we're going to I will answer the eternal question, should you take a golf cart or should you walk? There's scientific evidence now behind that debate. Don't say none of the above. Okay, let's stop making fun of golfers. I love golf. It's a lot of fun. Okay.
Call us at 888-PLAN-READY. That's 888-PLAN-READY. Or visit us at rickedelman.com. That's ricedelman.com. Now, back to Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call in now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
We are back. This is Dr. Steve Petteruti. You're listening to Intellectual Medicine and WPRO. My guest is Liz. She's a cancer mom whose son survived Ewing's sarcoma, is now approached, I think he's past 5 years. Is he past 5 years, Liz? Where's he at? That's beautiful. Well, we're going to pop a cork, but you know what? We pop a cork every day. Every day we get up and put our feet on the ground, we pop a cork, and we celebrate being alive. Because nobody's got a guarantee for tomorrow, but it's a different story when you've had cancer. I'm going to share the theories here. Why are we advocating intravenous vitamin C on a regular basis for cancer survivors, especially pediatric? There's something called doubling time. Cancers are known to divide, and cellular division takes place. The doubling time for one cell to become two can span anywhere from a couple of weeks, Ewing sarcoma is particularly speedy, to months. And after treatment, stem cells from cancer stem cells, can remain alive and circulating. These stem cells are felt to be resilient to chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Think of them as little microscopic cancer cell producing factories. And after you have no evidence of tumor, they can still be there, spitting out little baby cancer cells. The theory, based upon the mechanism of action of vitamin C, is that by virtue of giving these once-a-month infusions, we're giving toxic doses, in essence, poisoning the cancer cells as they're attempting to grow, but far before they will ever manifest a visible evidence of presence or symptom. For cancer to be seen on an imaging study requires, in some cases, a tumor size up to 1 centimeter in diameter. That can mean 30 doubling times or 7 to 12 years, depending on the cancer. So it's just not enough to look at the tumors and say they're not there, we're good to go. Now, this theory I'm proposing, it's unproven. Vitamin C is not FDA approved to treat any cancer. We do not know if this theory is going to work. Liz is a courageous cancer mom who has chosen to add this because she knows of its safety and she knows of its limits and its possible benefit. We have started, Liz, you'll be happy to know, and I'm happy to tell, a cohort which is a means of following all patients that are in this type of approach, children and adults that are choosing to do intravenous vitamin C. And our ambition is to spread this throughout the country, and I'm going to be using my talk in May. It's going to be in Florida. wish it were now, but that's be in Florida in May, and we're going to be announcing and promoting this initiative to spread IV vitamin C accessibility. Now, regarding its safety, has your son had any negative consequence over the years of doing vitamin C that you've noted? Cool. Yeah. That's what we love seeing him. He chills out back there in our drip bar. It's a beautiful, relaxing environment, as are all of the intellectual medicine drip bars, including the one in East Providence with Dr. Souza. Now, here's the piece de resistance. No harm, possible benefit, and oh, by the way, it's free. That's right, free. Because of the great work of Lori from Haven's Healing's Hands. She's a cancer mom whose child benefited enormously from intravenous vitamin C, and she decided to make this part of her mission, which is to promote its availability and to make it more widespread. And part of the reason, Liz, I wanted you on is to try to help other cancer moms feel comfortable considering this path. We want to help the kids, their families. There's something that we can offer them that is safe, that is a high possibility, that has, let me rephrase that, I gotta be careful, people are listening, has a possibility of benefit, although unproven, and that doesn't cost anything. I mean, what's not to love, right? And it's worked. How's it been working with Haven's Healing's Hands? Any hassles, administrative hassles? That's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful organization. Yep. Well, thank you. You know, we're partnered with them. They provide the materials. We provide the service. Families burdened with pediatric cancer, they got enough on their plate. We don't want the burden of financial pressure as well. You can go to our website. You can come see either Dr. Souza, myself, for consultations. I encourage you to do your own research, and Shannon will make available. Shannon and I will be stocking our site with some of the key articles on intravenous vitamin C, so people can make your own decisions, much like Liz has had to make along with her husband for her family. Liz, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks for taking time on this snowy morning. Have a beautiful day. You're welcome. Well, that was Liz talking about her son's experience. Free intravenous vitamin C for any pediatric patient either fighting cancer or who has had cancer. We always send notes out to the treating oncology team. I think it's super critical that this information be shared. We do not expect our mainstream colleagues to have deep knowledge about vitamin C. It's not their area of expertise. We look forward to engaging with them to coordinate care and to reassure that what's happening has been synergistic. That means vitamin C, and this was in the paper as well, that it is shown in most cases to be helping chemotherapy and to help radiation therapy as well. How are we doing for time, Tyler? Can I tear 1 minute? Can I tear the box open on gun control in 1 minute? So we're going to, and we may have to come back. So there's a bill now to advocate for gun control. It's being introduced at the same time, and I see Tony DeJesus is here. Tony, they're after the big blue bug. They want to tax the bug. I was driving in today. I saw a tear in the big blue bug's little eye because Gina Raimondo's after him. They're going to tax the sand at the beach. They're taxing the big blue bug. They're taxing everything because you don't have enough taxes to pay, people. You cheap son of a guns. You got to fork over more money to the Raimondo administration so she can give your money away to whatever she wants, to the big companies that she's trying to lure here, right? We're in boom times. 10 states across the United States, including Florida, are cutting taxes. South Carolina is giving rebates to their people. Other states have put $33 billion in their rainy day fund. Rhode Island is going broke. We're draining our reserves in a boom time. So what do? We put forth legislation for gun control. Why? It's distraction politics. Don't mind the tax increase. Now, this legislation, galls me. We're going to have to put our guns under lock and key. Otherwise, you're violating look, I have a gun. You know I have a gun? I have a gun so I can shoot somebody who comes in my house that doesn't belong there. I'm not a sport hunter. I'm not a target shooter. It's self-defense. It's 3 a.m. You hear somebody rattling around downstairs. Your gun is safely locked in the vault. You're fumbling for the key while you're getting robbed. The hell is this? When I'm away and Shannon's home alone, pardon me, this gets me annoyed because it's stupid legislation. Justine Caldwell from East Greenwich, stupid legislation. East Greenwich has a lot of breaking and enterings. When I'm away, the gun is loaded. It's next to the nightstand. God forbid somebody comes in. You're going to be staring at the wrong end of the barrel, baby. And I am not going to impose a lock and a key. Can you imagine it's 3 a.m. You just woke up. You don't have your contacts in. You can't see anything. You're fumbling for the key to get your gun ready to defend yourself. Look, this is a real thing. Many people choose responsible gun ownership. Everybody in my family knows how to handle a weapon, even my kids. If Shannon happens to fumble with her weapon, you're going to get shot by one of my boys. This is gun control idiocy. We all want safe use of guns. We want reasonable legislation. But this people, distraction politics, will impose on the freedom to defend myself. And it's distraction politics, so you don't notice they're ramming it up your butt with more taxes. I got to take a break. I got to catch a breath. I'm going to be right back. This is Dr. Petteruti on Intellectual Medicine, talking about how to keep yourself safe and healthy. It's not getting shot by an intruder. Be right back.
Planning your next getaway?
Tony's got something to add. Tony, where'd you go?
I'm just going in this place to say hi to him.
Yeah.
Was at the hearing.
It's funny. I was at the
Come on in,
hearing.
have a seat.
I was at the hearing
Yeah.
the other day. They want to tax. They were going to put a 10% tax
Have a seat.
on the gun.
Yeah.
On the gun owners, on what they buy, their ammo and guns, 10, on top of what they already have. So
Yeah.
they're going to be paying 17% tax. They came out in force. They flooded the State House. They had over 400 people there. But
The
I was
anti-tax
testifying,
people.
right? But I was testifying for the service tax that they're putting on. You know, and you think of a small business person
Yeah.
that, all right, they have us for pest control. Maybe they have a cleaning company come in.
Yep.
They have now you're 7% here, 7% here. You're killing them.
You're killing
It is
small
so
business.
anti-business. It is incredible.
You want to hang for a minute? We'll
Sure.
wrap up the show and then we'll flow over to yours because,
Okay.
you know, I tie these issues now. Tony DeJesus has joined me in the booth. He's almost as good looking as Shannon.
You're gonna go a long way there.
That's right. Anyhow, we're talking about your health, people. Financial health is relevant, and the heartbeat of financial health is your job. And the heartbeat of your job is small business, like Tony DeJesus at Big Blue Bug, like intellectual medicine. You nibble, you corrode the environment, small businesses slowly die. They don't die instantly.
No.
The businesses will not close next month because they jack the taxes. But there's a reason why Rhode Island's losing population. There's a reason why our coffers are empty, our tax revenues are down. It's because people aren't making the money and the businesses are not choosing to grow here. I can't tell you how many of my patients at Intellectual Medicine are not Rhode Island residents. Right? Lincoln Chafee's not a Rhode Island resident.
That's right. Even
Phil Knoll was not a Rhode Island resident. I will predict Gina Raimondo will not be a Rhode Island resident. They're going to take their pensions, they're taking their money, and they're going to a tax-free state. 6 months in a day.
Yep.
And Rhode Island suffers that sucking sound you hear is all the tax revenue leaving. We're losing a congressional seat, our population is shrinking. And what are we talking about at a state level? We need more tax money. Are you out of your mind? Do you remember that buyout that they did?
Yep.
Where they were going to have people retire early?
Early, yep.
Yeah. So the state had a buyout where they encouraged people to retire early so they could shrink the workforce.
Yep.
You know, the workforce has increased since then by 140 people.
Yeah. And the interesting thing in that hearing, They said they had in that budget $600,000 because they're going to need state jobs for people to monitor the taxes they have to collect. $600,000 they added, so they're gaining revenue and they're paying out $600,000 because they need money for people to pay people to monitor.
Right. Hey, folks,
It's
these are
insane.
your elected representatives. You know, and the problem, as I see it, Tony, becomes indifference.
Yes.
In Rhode Island, we've gotten to a point where we shrug and we're like the Russians waiting in line for bread. We're saying this is
Okay.
Rhode Island. This is as good as it gets.
Right. Yeah.
It's not as good as it gets.
No,
We
no,
can do
it's not.
better. Drives me crazy. I might have to do something about it. I might have to run for office. I'm fed up.
I'm behind you.
Thank you, Tony. Be part of my
You got a sign in
exploratory
my yard
committee.
whenever you want it.
Tony hopping on with you?
Yeah, Tony's going to join me.
I don't think anyone, including myself, thought that I could switch.
And you're
Okay.
right though. Stress. If you own a business and now you're thinking, how am I going to pay these taxes? What am I going to do here? How am I going to make my budget? How am I going to pay payroll tomorrow? You know,
Right.
it's stress and hot things like that.
Well, you're going to lose a certain amount of revenue when you jack prices 7%.
Right.
Some people are going to drop out.
They do.
And when they drop out, you're going to lose income. And what are you going to do about that? You
Yep.
can't pick up the big blue bug and move it to Connecticut tomorrow.
Right.
But if you attrit an employee or two,
Right.
there's a trickle effect. Multiply
Exactly.
that times 1,000.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, you got a state that's dying.
Yep.
We may not have time to get to the prostitution issue today. I don't know. We'll have to. I might have to roll prostitution in next week. I think it'll still be an issue next week,
Oh, yes.
right?
Back to intellectual
We should.
I'm not sure if that mic is back to being functional. So Tony, do you want to flip over there?
Wait, over that side?
Hey, gang, we're back. Tony DeJesus has joined me in the booth. He is with the Big Blue Bug Solutions. And, you know, Tony, before we amplify the adverse health consequence of corrosive financial policy, look, in Rhode Island, people are suffering suicide, depression, the addiction rate is skyrocketing. To a certain degree, we can theorize it's a misery index. It's a lack of opportunity. It's systemic, cultural, statewide depression. We were talking about this, like, guns are a concern, but there are more people dying from slow misery than
Absolutely.
from gun assaults from wanton criminals coming into places of work. Now, let's focus for a moment, though. First, I promised I would. Did you play golf, Tony?
I used to, but I don't anymore.
Well, if you play golf and you have an arthritic knee, the research proves you're better off walking than riding the golf cart.
Wow.
Even though your knee may hurt a little more, the exercise stimulates collagen reformation, and that is the health of the knee actually improves. We know this.
Over time.
When you do strength training for your knee joint, the joint can heal and get better. So, folks, walk, don't ride. If your knee hurts a little bit, it's going to be okay.
That's
And
interesting.
don't take non-steroidal drugs, Advil, Motrin. These drugs are harmful. They cause gastric bleeding. There are studies that show that they can interfere with the production of new collagen in your joints. So when you take them because your joints hurt, you can accelerate possibly their corrosion. A study in military individuals showed an increasing rate of kidney failure in people that took them on a regular basis.
Wow.
Now I say this because we need to talk about pain on another show, Tony.
Yep.
Because it's a crisis.
Definitely.
You know, the opioid epidemic has caused doctors to retreat from managing pain, and now we're using other drugs that may be more toxic to our patients. And I'm afraid, folks, we have to postpone the whole prostitution conversation to next week. I think it'll still be an issue in a week, so
I'm
stay
sure.
with us. But we got to turn it back. Health is more than not having disease. It's a state of optimistic good spirit. And that comes from confidence in your future. It comes from your financial well-being. Your good health is connected to your financial well-being, so you can buy food, so you can pay for your rent, so you can feel optimistic. If you've ever been laid off, if you've ever lost your income, and I have,
Yep.
it will corrode your health. Now, Tony DeJesus is part of Small Business Rhode Island.
Yes.
The Big Blue Bug employs people and makes sure that toxins are safely administered. You raise these taxes, they want to whack 7% to the Big Blue Bug.
Right, exactly. 7% on all commercial properties that we service and commercial businesses, and in Rhode Island, a lot of that is mom and pop businesses.
Oh, that's the bread and butter.
That's the bread and butter. And now we're hitting them, say, because we have to charge them. We can't absorb the tax, so we charge them 7%. And maybe they have a cleaning service, or somebody comes and plows their lot and snows, and they're going to charge them 7%. Yep. And before you know it, they're getting nickel and dime to death.
And 7% is not nickel and diming.
No.
Let's stop using that term. We're talking Jeffersons and Benjamins here.
You're right.
And what happens is this, folks. The same guy that uses Big Blue Bug, and I'm talking about me now. I got Big Blue Bug. I got a guy plowing my drive. I got a guy cut my lawn. Who's getting cut? Right. Somebody's losing a job.
That's right.
And that trickles down, and Big Blue Bug lays somebody off, and that person goes unemployed, and the money leaves, and our tax revenues go down, and now you have a budget deficit, so the idiots then have to raise more taxes. It's a death spiral. Rhode Island is in a death spiral. We're losing tax. I was sharing with you, many of my patients are 6 month and a dayers. They left Rhode Island. Link Chafee left Rhode Island.
Yes.
Phil Knoll left Rhode Island.
Yep.
They're leaving to a tax-free haven.
And it's on their part, economically it's smart. I mean, why would they stay here and pay taxes? Why would they see their inheritance getting banged and everything? It's horrible.
And I blame us people. I blame you and I for this because we have adopted an attitude of indifference. And I mentioned this. It's like the Russians standing in a bread line. It's awful, but it's what we know.
And it's true because people just say to themselves, it's Rhode Island, we have to pay the taxes, what are we going to do? Instead of getting out there, and I was so happy, I testified at the hearing the other night, and on Thursday night, and myself, the president of the company, testified, and there was the gun lobbyists came out in support of the legislation, or opposing the legislation, supporting themselves. I mean, and there were so many people there, the people from the Blackstone Valley, the Business Association, all these business groups came out. It's horrible.
Did you see that on the news?
Yes.
Was a video on the news?
There was a little bit, not much. What they concentrated on was the beach taxes.
You get 8 liberals together with a protest sign, and they're all over the news, right? You get hundreds and hundreds of Rhode Islanders of a conservative orientation trying to save our state from the sucking sound of killer taxes. Silence. Well, I'm glad they're advocating, but people, we need to become energized. I remember when Rhode Island had no income tax.
That's right.
I remember when Rhode Island had no lottery.
Right.
I remember when Twin River Casino was not an economic engine. We plowed the streets. We educated our children. We policed the criminals without those revenue streams. What happened? I remember when the lottery came into being. Do you remember that?
I do remember.
Do you remember what it was going to be for?
It was going to be for our road repairs, for our infrastructure, of the state, and education.
It was going to be education. We're going to have the best schools in the country because our lottery is going to go to the schools, people. What happened? Our schools are awful. Our roads are a mess. Our tax burden is skyrocketing. We can do better, but we have to first believe we can do better, and we've got to take action at the ballot box. This monopolistic control of one party in Rhode Island is killing us. You speak out against the Don. You do so at your own risk.
Exactly.
Opposition voices are stifled, and we become so afraid to speak our mind. When you speak your mind, and if it is not in keeping with the mainstream, you're going to suffer a consequence.
Yeah, unfortunately, here in Rhode Island, particularly, with the unions and everything, they all get behind the Democratic Party, and it is one thing just flowing and flowing, and it's taxing us to death.
Hey, baby, the tail is wagging the dog.
That's it.
The state of Rhode Island does not exist to give jobs out through the state. It exists to support small business. Now, you told me something hilarious.
That budget bill, it was 5151, that budget bill. In order for them to implement it, they had to put in $600,000 for salaries to pay for the people who are going to have to monitor it.
How about
that? So this is going to be creating more state jobs, just what we need.
So Governor Raimondo offered early retirement to a bunch of state employees to try to reduce the workforce of the state. It cost a ton of money. A lot of people took advantage of it. And since then, the state workforce has increased by over 100 people. Are you out of your mind? Now, what does this have to do with health? Everything.
Yes.
Your health has to do with your financial well-being. Rhode Island is losing money and population. We need the freedom to make choices. Now, you heard Liz talking about her son, about intravenous vitamin C, about the innovation that we are pioneering at Intellectual Medicine, weight control innovation, anti-aging innovation, cancer support innovation. We are an innovation hub. We are what Rhode Island wants to be. And our reward for that is opposition And our reward for that is a fight that we have to go through in order to have the freedom to offer you choices. We're going to be talking about that. We are headed for a showdown at Intellectual Medicine, and it's not one that we invited, it's one we attempted to control, and we will. We're going to fight and win. And until next week, thank you, Tony. You carry the ball forward.
No.
I'm Dr. Petteruti. This is Intellectual Medicine. We're wishing you 120 low-tax freedom years.
All right.
Thanks for joining. You know what? This is so important.
Oh, it is. People
Don't realize it. You know why? Because the day after the taxes go up, the day after Tony to Jesus, the day after they jack your gun tax 17%, there's not going to be anything that'll change, right? You'll go to work. The budget, this will leave the headline. The budget will be balanced for the moment. And then the corrosion. Tony can't get up and leave. I can't get up and leave tomorrow. But we can choose not to grow here.
That's it.
We can choose to create a satellite business in another state. We can choose to leave. It may take a few years. We may need to make a plan. Bye-bye. Good luck paying for everything when everybody that generates business exits. And you're courting Amazon. Remember that? They're going to throw money at Amazon.
Yep.
What has that gotten us? Drives me nuts.
Nothing.
All right.
Brian Goldman, the president of the Big Blue Cup, when he testified, he said, I have to now start to think, where do I want to grow the Big Blue Bug business? Do we grow it in Rhode Island, or do I go into Massachusetts and Connecticut, where we already operate, but not as well?
Sure.
He said, maybe that's where I need to spend my money. He was really upset.
You look at the states that have robust growth, and they have one thing in common. They're all low tax or no tax states.
Right.
So here's my advocacy. I want Rhode Island to be a no income tax state. We'll talk about how we're going to get there. I'll see you guys next week. We'll be talking next week. We have to talk about chelation. Have you ever heard of chelation?
No, what's chelation?
All right, you got to tune in next week.
I got it. Well, I listen anyway.
It's life-saving stuff.
Chelation.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
All right, Doc. Thanks.